When you write and you've been so prolific, it's easy for me as a reader to say, okay, I like this Jeffrey Archer and not that one. How do you evaluate which book is your best or not so good? Do you do it at all for yourself?
You try to do it. You try to do it. The trouble is the public leads you. The public say Cain and Abel, or then they say no, no, not a penny more, not a penny less, and then they say other things. So you're guided. My theory is, for what it's worth, it's often the first one of your books that they've read that they like best. In India, that was Cain and Abel. I mean, 50 million people in India have read Cain and Abel. So that, for me, was the big breakthrough. So Indian people have a tendency to compare every book with Cain and Abel. I've no quarrel with that. I'm sentimental about Not a Penny More, Not a Penny Less, which only sold 3,000 in hardback and only 117 in India. And then it took off in paperback and took off again when Cain and Abel came out. So I can't say to you, I feel my best book is X. Though my wife feels very strongly that As the Crow Flies, you see, which came after Cain and Abel, she thinks that's the best thing I've ever done. And there's a whole group of people in India who think the short stories are better than the novels. I'm
going to shift gears a bit. We're going to get personal. You wrote, I think sometime last year, about Arthur Conan Doyle. And you said, and I'm quoting you now, and the genius of it all, of course, is that Conan Doyle was a flawed man. A great man is a flawed man. Okay? Do you see yourself as a great man, or do you see yourself as a flawed man?
I certainly see myself as a flawed man. We're all flawed. Many of us never get into the public eye. We are never seen on television, or indeed play the role you're playing. All of us are flawed. I have never met the perfect person. I look forward to meeting the perfect person. They'll probably be very boring. George Mallory was incredibly flawed, and I mean, focused to a degree that was close on mania, leaving his wife behind and climbing this mountain. Most people you meet in life who've really achieved something, of course, if they've achieved something great, they're likely to have great flaws. I think I'd rather be flawed and interesting than not flawed and boring.
When one looks at anything that's written about you or your life or your career, the word disgrace keeps popping up, okay? And especially in your country, where honor and truth and honesty in public life is held in such high esteem. You seem to keep stumbling on several counts. And,
well,
you know, proven,
let me just pick that up very
unproven.
quickly. Let me pick that up very quickly. The Sunday Times actually rang a couple of weeks ago to apologize for using that word. They felt they shouldn't have used it, perhaps because after what I've achieved for charity and in writing in the last 6 or 7 years, it was time to forget it. So yes, but you're not going to get anybody who gets anywhere in life that you can't sit there and say, I'd like to talk to you about your 3 divorces. You know, there's always something you can find, and that's perhaps what makes the human being more interesting.
It's interesting that the reading public, your readers, don't seem to have any problems with any of the controversies you found yourself in throughout your life. Charges of insider trading, not prosecuted, taken back, not enough evidence, infidelity. Jeffrey Archer, you've lived the most interesting life and you've lived to tell us the tale. But having said that, how do you explain that the readers don't have any expectations of your morality from you?
Well, Charles Dickens had the same problem when it came to infidelity, and it hasn't stopped the world going to reading him. So did William Shakespeare, 2 far more important writers than I ever was, and Charles and Dumas, my great hero, much worse. So I don't think the public buy a book. If they're turning the page, that isn't what they care about. They care about whether they're turning the page. I don't think, I may be wrong, but I have a feeling that the Indians are not as judgmental as the rest of the world, or certainly not the English. They're very much more forgiving. They're very much more serene. They're very much more calm about these things, and they take it in their stride. They read the book and love the book and move on, and I'm grateful for that.
I've heard you say that you don't have political ambition anymore. The fact remains that you started out to be a politician.
Long time ago, yes.
A long time ago, and you had to give it all up, and you had to give it all up because of certain standards of moral conduct or accepted behavior. You couldn't live up to those. If I were to say, Jeffrey Archer, today, this great success you've seen as a storyteller, writer, this great love you've seen from many people, this great joy and information you brought to a lot of people. If you had a chance to swap that, to reach the ultimate, to be the first among equals and be the Prime Minister of England, of Great Britain, how would you?
I think human beings always want to do the thing they haven't done, i.e. if the books had gone badly, you'd be fighting to be the politician, or if the politics has gone badly, you're fighting to do the books. It's the same with most people, because it was Proust who said we all end up doing the thing we're second best at. But the answer to your question is, I'm very, very lucky to have a gift that has allowed me to have a totally different life, to lead a totally different life. So for the last 15 years, I've only been writing, I've only been caring about my writing, and I hope for that reason it's got better. So that's what I do now. By the way, in reference to politics, the new leader of the Conservative Party is 43 years old. The new Chancellor, new Shadow Chancellor, is 37. I'm nearly 70. So that may be young in India, but in England, we're all sitting in the House of Lords or given up politics.
The fact that you said that you would rather be interesting and flawed than, perfect and boring. But having said that, is it a regret that you could not see a political career that you had started out on all those years ago?
I've never met a politician who felt they fulfilled what they should have done. Now, obviously, Margaret Thatcher must have got pretty darn close to it, and I had the great privilege of working with her for 11 years. But I was thinking about this the other day when someone said, would you like to have been Prime Minister? I said, I can think of 20 people who would say yes and are way ahead of me in that. Their right to be Prime Minister. I can think of 100 people who thought they might be Prime Minister. So at that level, frankly, only one or two people actually succeed. Where I've been very lucky is having another thing to do in life, which for me has been writing.
But that would have been the first preference.
No, I would have captained the England cricket team.
That would have been the first preference.
Unquestionably. I'd have scored a century at Lord's. Mr. Tendulkar, Mr. Dravid would have been standing there, amazed by my off-drive, amazed by my cuts, and they would have announced me as, whereas they are.
Wisden Cricketer of the Year from several years in a running.
7 years in a running.
Several years in a running.
Several years, with Tendulkar saying, oh, master.
Okay, so, and after that would be the political career?
No, I've enjoyed both equally. I have to say I've enjoyed both equally. And I think long term, the writer is more powerful than the politician. I think the writer goes on being read when people are long forgotten. They go on being able to influence long after other people are forgotten. Now, I think the writer is more powerful than the politician.
And you're not just saying it because...
No. I'd love to have been Prime Minister. No. I think the writer is more powerful. If you said to me, which would you rather be, Charles Dickens or Benjamin Disraeli? I'd rather be Charles Dickens.
Okay, Jeffrey Archer, we know there are some unauthorized biographies of yours floating around, but if I were to ask you, if you had to pick someone today to do what you've done for George Mallory, who would you pick?
There's a very fine writer in England called Holroyd, but he does rather serious books. So I don't think he'd consider doing me. I'll wait till I'm dead, because I've still got other things I want to achieve.
Jeffrey Archer, given the life you've led, you've heard it before, you've read it before, it would be great material for a book. So maybe you should do the autobiography.
No, I know what I want to do. I've spent the last year rewriting Cain and Abel, and that is coming out again. I've spent 9 months, 500 hours rewriting Cain and Abel, and that comes out in October. I'm then doing a set of short stories, and I know exactly what I'm going to do after that. So the next 4 or 5 years are already mapped out.
There'll be no
time to be Minister of Transport in India. It's not going to be possible at the moment. Much as I'd like the job, it's not going to be possible at the moment.
Jeffrey Archer, thank you. All the very best. It was fun.
Very kind. Thank you very much indeed.